Hey guys, it's Jake Mace with JakeMace.com. I'm here outside of my garden just uploading a new YouTube video for you guys. And I just went live to my Jake Mace Tai Chi Instagram, trying out the new live feature there, and some of the people on the Instagram were asking me live my opinion of last night's UFC fight. I think it was, UFC 207 between Nunes and Ronda Rousey. And yeah, I saw it, of course, because it's 48 seconds long and it's all over Instagram and all over Facebook, and you don't even have to pay to watch the UFC on pay-per-view because it'll be available 10 hours later on social media for free anyways. I think it's really cool that there are a lot of traditional martial art people teaching on YouTube that have, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers and millions and millions and millions of views promoting their traditional martial arts lessons from Korea or Japan or China. I think it's very important that young people out there get a lot of experience with the traditional, Asian style martial arts, because there's so much more that you learn and that you can take away from traditional martial arts besides the fighting. Of course you get the fighting skills because you're sparring in class and you're learning how human beings move. You're learning what it looks like to have punches and kicks and takedowns and throws and shoots delivered to you. You're learning how to defend yourself against those things over and over and over again so that on the street, if it ever does happen, you're very comfortable in that situation. But besides the fighting, you get so many other values and so many other beneficial parts of life from training in the traditional Asian martial arts, like discipline and focus and confidence and fitness, and the ability to control your emotional state through meditation, the ability to have longevity through the qigong and through the fitness and through the movement training you do within the martial arts. And to this day, I think that martial arts kata practice, weapons practice, and sparring practice is the best form of physical fitness in the world, because there's nothing you can do at the gym that's as unpredictable as the martial arts. And there's nothing you can do at the gym that involves the full body like the martial arts does. I still go to the gym because I enjoy going to work out, but the martial arts is it, man. Not only for focus, for confidence, for longevity, for friendships with other human beings. Man, the martial arts has got it all. And I think that the sad part is that in today's climate, there's a ton of young people being born into the world that don't know who Jackie Chan is, that don't know who Bruce Lee is, that don't know what Taekwondo or karate or Kung Fu is all about, because all they see and all they are bombarded with is UFC, 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 MMA, 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 because the UFC, which is filling its ranks with MMA fighters, has got the money. It's got the sweet dollar. And it uses that money and it uses that sweet dollar to market the crap out of itself, just like any business does in today's climate. The same thing can be said for the Dairy Association, dairy farmers, the Meat Association, meat farmers. They have so much money and they market the crap out of their product that people see a guy like me who's a vegan vegetarian, they wonder why I'm so crazy weird that I wouldn't eat meat or dairy, which is good for your body. And I'm of the belief that it's not, but it's heavily marketed. It's got the money behind it. And the UFC and MMA has the money behind it. And what happens is that when you tell somebody in today's climate that you do Kung Fu or Taekwondo or karate, an MMA or a UFC guy looks down on you and looks at you like a weakling and actually starts to bully you in many cases because they think that they're the best fighters and the best martial artists in the world. And what you saw last night in the 48-second Rousey-Nunes match is you saw two people go at each other with almost zero defense at all, just throwing power bombs and throwing meat hooks. And if you watch the fight again, and it's 48 seconds of glory, if you watch it in slow motion again, you'll see that all Nunes is doing is throwing power bombs as aggressively as possible at Rousey, and Rousey has zero defense for striking, and she just gets lit up. Nunes has zero defense. Showed it last night. She was keeping herself guarded zero, just throwing the power bombs. And the reason why they have zero defense is because they know that if they get into trouble, there's a referee there to keep them alive and to keep them safe. They know that if they miss one of those power bombs, if Nunes doesn't connect, the referee will save her from having permanent damage or having a limb broken or whatever. Same thing with Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is this guy who has that powerful left hand, and if he ever misses with the left hand and gets tagged, or if a guy like Nate Diaz comes along who's got his number and chokes him out from behind, Conor McGregor doesn't care because the referee will step in there and stop the match, stop the fight before he dies. So there's no fear behind throwing that powerful left because he knows that he can miss and walk away fine and become a millionaire anyways. And what's happening is that a guy like Conor McGregor, for instance, he also knows more than that. He knows that if he's foul-mouthed, and if he's loud-mouthed, and if he's arrogant and egotistical, and if he is undisciplined and rude, and a terrible example for children, and a terrible example for young fighters or young martial artists, he'll make more money because the cameras and the media eat that up. They love it. They love hearing him say the F word and the SH word and to hear him call their fighters pussies and all this stuff. And they eat it up. And therefore, when he's loud and arrogant and displays zero values that traditional martial arts teaches, he gets paid more money, millions of dollars. And heck, you guys out there watching right now, if I told you that you right now could pick a fighter and then you can insult that fighter and you can bully that fighter and you could be a clown on camera, and the more clownish you were and the more out of control you were, the more you flaunted arrogance and egotism, the more you flaunted money and wealth, the more that you were just a rude a-hole, the more millions of dollars we would give you. And when you finally go fight the person you're insulting, don't worry about it, because if you get into trouble, we'll have a designated human being in the fight with you to save your life. I mean, you would go for it right now. We'll give you $30 million. It's insane. I mean, Ronda Rousey made what, like $3 million last night? Not to mention how much extra she makes with other businesses she's involved in, other marketing she's involved in. It's just a big, hyped, overhyped corporate business. So in my opinion, here's what you get when you see current MMA and current UFC fighters. You get five different things. Number one, you get talented athletes. Those MMA and UFC fighters are, world-class talented athletes, most of them. You get talented martial artists. Those guys are good at fighting. They know how to knock somebody out, and they know how to choke and submit somebody. Number three, you get people that are willing to put their blood, they're willing to put their brains, and they're willing to put their longevity and health on the line to make money and to have fame. And they're willing to get brain damage, they're willing to bleed, they're willing to break bones and joints, they're willing to go on painkillers the rest of their lives and be addicted to painkillers for the rest of their lives, like other athletes do, like American football players, in order to trade that for fame and money. Number four, you get marketing and hype. You get promoters. The UFC is what it is today, and MMA is what it is today because there are promoters and hype men that are making millions and billions. I mean, didn't the UFC just sell to a Japanese corporate group for $4 billion? With a B, billion dollars. And number five, you get a business and you get people that want to make money. And so when you have talented athletes, when you've got decent fighters, when you've got people willing to sacrifice their brains, to sacrifice their longevity, to sacrifice their bodies, to bleed and to become modern day human cockfighters for money, when you've got promoters hyping the crap out of it because they get a cut like lobbyists do in Washington, and when you've got business that's happening that stands to make billions of dollars, you've got the UFC. And then young people that are from the age of 6 to the age of 20, that they just want to do martial arts, they believe that MMA and that UFC is the only martial art that should be practiced because it's all they hear. All they hear is McGregor, 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 Ronda, 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 Spider Silva, Spider Silva, Spider Silva, Spider Silva. That's all they hear. And so they want to go and they want to bleed in the octagon. They want to get brain damage. They want to be addicted to painkillers. They want to make millions of dollars. They want to get hyped. They want the fame and they want the prestige and they want the pain that the fighters in the UFC are showing them. That's what you got. The problem is that in real life, there are millions and millions and millions of other martial artists that train traditional Korean martial arts, like Taekwondo, that train traditional Japanese martial arts, like karate, that train traditional Chinese martial arts, like Kung Fu and Tai Chi. And their interest is living a higher quality of life and gaining discipline and focus and a temperament that sets an example for young people, and having the side effect of their training be self-defense and the fighting. And I really believe in my heart that's what traditional Chinese Kung Fu and Tai Chi gives its practitioners. Our goal is not to go bleed and to get brain damage. Our goal is not to go get hyped by somebody. Our goal is not to go make millions and millions of dollars. I mean, hell, I don't make millions and millions of dollars. But I'll tell you what one of the most common emails I get is, and one of the most common Instagram messages I get is, and one of the most common Snapchat DMs I get is, and one of the most common YouTube comments I get is, and it's, Jake, why don't you go fight in the UFC? And some people comment that and they say, Jake, if you think you're so great, why don't you go fight in the UFC? The other people say, Jake, if you really want to go and promote Chinese martial arts and Chinese Kung Fu, why don't you go in the UFC? So two different emotional states behind the question, but I get, Jake, go in the UFC more than any other comment or question, because people today that are young, they think that UFC is the end-all be-all of what a martial artist should be, and I really disagree with this. Maybe I'm old school. I'm only 35 years old, but maybe I'm old school. Maybe I'm an old soul. But I believe that the purpose of martial arts is not to fight, not to bleed, not to get brain damage, not to be addicted to painkillers the rest of your life. You know how many professional athletes that play football can't even pick up their own children, are addicted to Oxycontin and other, numbing painkillers all the time? And you know how many football players, American football players, are in wheelchairs? A ton. Dying of CTE, brain disease? A ton. And I think that UFC is more violent than American football. The majority of UFC fighters and the majority of MMA fighters do not get to the level of Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor in terms of fame and money. The majority of those fighters are just people with a dream, and they want to be modern day gladiators bleeding in the Coliseum and modern day cockfighters serving the masters of promotion and marketing and business. And you'll never hear about them because they get brain damage and they get hurt and they get permanently destroyed before they've ever had any fame or any money. You hear about the ones that fell through the cracks, the ones that the UFC has chosen to put up on a pedestal and to promote and to build up so that they can make a killing off the pay-per-view tickets and off the marketing relationships that they get when they promote fighters like Conor McGregor, like Ronda Rousey, like Anderson Silva. So if you're out there right now, I want to challenge you guys out there to let your martial arts training and let your martial arts practice serve a higher purpose. I want you guys to be 120 years old and still able to move and be an active member in society. I want you guys to live a life without sickness and without injury and then die quickly, as is the Chinese way. But instead, most of us today, we live a life with sickness and then we die slowly. And so my martial arts practice involves Tai Chi, involves Bagua, involves Xingyi, involves traditional Shaolin style Kung Fu, involves Qigong, and involves 100% plant-based vegan diet because I'm trying to be compassionate to animals, compassionate of the earth's resources. I'm trying to have fun training weapons and trying to capture a glimpse of Chinese history through the kata and the Tao Lu and the weapons practice that I put myself through. And then if somebody ever comes into my garden and tries to take the petal of my rose, my thorns are on the stem to prick them. And that's the side effect of training in the martial arts, is that the fighting aspect of the martial arts is the thorns. And the chi inside of us is the rose petals. And the thorns only harm those that would try to take the flower.